let's talk about Entity Framework first. In general, Entity Framework is a very good way how you can manage your database schema changes. So let's say that I've just started my project, and what I have here, I have my first migration. I called it initial DB, and I've basically created a table with 2 columns, and I called the table employees. Then my project evolved, and what I did next, I basically altered the table. I've created my second migration, and I've added 2 more columns to that table. Okay? So that was done by me as a dev person. Okay, let's say that now I am a DBA person and I was asked to review those changes. Why it may be not so easy for me to do that? Because let's say that we are using the Microsoft stack, and let's say that we are using, as in this example, the C# and .NET to do the application development, and therefore we are using the Microsoft SQL Server as a database engine. So if I'm working with Microsoft SQL database as a DBA, what you can expect from me is that I will know T-SQL, but I will not always know the C#, especially to that level as a dev person will know it. Okay, so of course all those migrations that I basically showed you here, they are relatively simple, but anyway, I mean, like, this is still the code, and I mean, like, that C# code will be still by some magic translated to the exact SQL statements. And if you ask me to review that code, then it will mean that I not only need to know about C#, but I also need to know how exactly the Entity Framework will translate that C# code to my SQL statements. Okay. The second part, why I may not be fully happy with that, is basically with my startup class. Because if I will follow most of the examples all over the internet how to do the Entity Framework together with the ASP.NET, they will recommend that you will basically do what I did here on my line number 51 in your startup file, that you will put the explicit call to context database migrate method. In that way, you will kind of always apply the latest changes to your database as soon as your application will start. Again, if you're doing POC, there are nothing wrong with that kinds of approaches, okay? But let's say that you need to do this release to the production server. As a DBA person, I will be unhappy with that because now I don't have any control over which exact changes will be applied to the database. And the most important part is, if as a DBA person I need to guarantee something like a 0 downtime, or I don't know, let's say that maybe some requirements in terms of in case the deployment will fail, we will need to roll it back, then again, as a DBA person, I will not have a full control of that, so I cannot be technically responsible for that. And in addition to that, the application itself will be unable to start before all the migrations will be applied. So it means that if I have a lot of migrations that needs to be applied on top of that database, the application will be unable to start and unable to work. And of course, that will even increase the level of tension in the team. So what I can do with this one? So with this one, I recommend to fix it with an Entity Framework, basically CLI tool that you can install as a part of your .NET SDK in general. So let's see how it can be done.